Get a second opinion now from our Tuesday gaggle. Bill Burton, a former Obama White House spokesman and co-founder of Priorities USA Action Fund, Shira Center, the politics editor for Roll Call, and Republican strategist Bill Musser. Thank you all so much for being here this morning. I want to start with you, Bill.
Great.
Since you know what it's like to be inside the White House, how is the administration handling this, and how can they turn this moment around?
Well, I think they're being as aggressive as you would expect. They're putting in place this enormous, huge program trying to get health care to folks. Of course, there's going to be some glitches along the way. The good news is there are hundreds of thousands of people who have applied. They are hitting some of their targets, but you know, I've been at the White House. I worked for the president from 2007 to 2011, and I know that when things are not going right, it is a very uncomfortable place to be if you're right in his line of fire. So you can bet that people are burning some midnight oil trying to get this thing fixed.
Knowing what you know of him, do you think someone will have to be fired in the wake of this?
I don't know about people getting fired or anything like that. I think the focus right now is making sure that people who want to get health care can get health care. And the Republican message is rooting for failure, ultimately, when what we need is people who are committed to actually trying to make this work and get people covered so that so we can get a control of healthcare costs in this country.
Sure. One of the challenges for the White House is every day there are more headlines about this being mishandled. Today we're learning that they may have had a test before it was rolled out, and red flags were raised at that point. How can the White House and how should the White House move forward from this point?
Right. Well, the White House is really in a race against the clock because every day someone can log onto the site and see it is dysfunctional and it is not working. And every day more people are doing that. Every day it undercuts not only the credibility of the White House, but of the president's signature domestic legislation. So it's a big problem. It's going to take a long time to fix. This is a major website and a major complicated law. What I'm looking for next is on Capitol Hill, when Secretary Sebelius goes and testifies next week, I'm looking for the reaction from Senate Democrats and seeing which ones, if any, will call for her resignation. And that, to me, will be a real indication that the tide has turned.
Phil, the Republicans have been digging in on this point. This is a gift for them to some extent, but do they run the risk of overreach if the website does start to work? The president, after all, made the argument that this is not just about a website. It's about giving people health care.
Right. Well, there's been no sign that anything's worked at all. And to Bill's point that they're trying to, fix these glitches and be out front. I mean, the president went on television and gave an 800 number that then didn't work, okay? We're seeing massive problems with the website that should have been probably turned over to the secret team of Silicon Valley engineers at the outset, paid them $50 million instead of $500 million and had a hackathon to come up with what, healthcare.gov should look like. The problem for the White House is that they got a bit of a public relations gift in the shutdown period, which took the focus off of the implementation. The reality is now when the Daily Show and late night comics start hitting you day after day on process stories, it becomes really hard to turn the court of public opinion. And that's what the White House is facing now. I'm
going to play a little bit of what Marco Rubio had to say, and then I'm going to get your reaction on the other side. Take a listen. Oh, you know what? We don't have a soundbite. I will read it. He said, what I'm arguing is this. The law says very clearly that if at some point next year, if you don't have health insurance, you haven't bought it, the IRS, you're going to owe them money. A penalty. It's unfair to punish people for not purchasing a product that they can't purchase right now because the technology that's in place, the website, they're supposed to buy it all by the president's own admission. It's not working. So are the calls going to grow louder for the individual mandate to be delayed, postponed?
Well, it's common sense. The American people haven't been getting good value from their government. They haven't been getting good value from either branch of government, and they're pretty ticked off about it. And so the reality is, if you say, look, this thing is broken, and it's not fair to start the clock on you with a broken system, that's a message that's going to resonate. And those are the kinds of ideas that I think can probably get some traction. It's not what the White House wants to hear, but for someone who believes that this law will ultimately buckle under its own weight, there are only two ways to fix it. Let it buckle under its own weight, or win more seats in the House and the Senate and replace the law with a different electoral composition in the fall. And that's what we got to be focused on.
But that's slightly different from what Marco Rubio is saying. What he's saying is that the individual mandate shouldn't be there at all. Now, this is a Republican
He's saying
idea.
delay. He's saying delay. He's saying a 6-month delay.
Well, he's saying it's fundamentally un-American, basically.
Well, he is, to be fair, saying delay, but this is clearly a part of a larger strategy.
But the message around it is that the mandate is un-American, if you look at the words that he's saying. And I think that what he's basically doing is playing catch-up politics with Ted Cruz, who got so much attention over the course of the last last couple weeks because of the government shutdown. And do you see how I did that? Pivoted to Ted Cruz right okay.
You wanted to bring up Ted Cruz. We're going to do a little bit more on Ted Cruz in a few minutes. Shira, I want to give the last thought to you because obviously the White House has opened itself up to this type of debate and criticism, correct?
Exactly. And I think it's especially stinging for this White House because Barack Obama was known for his acumen in data and computers and politics and being able to harness voters. I mean, if you could build an infrastructure like that in 2008 and 2012, but this website is not working, well, that really stings.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back with more from our Tuesday gaggle. But first, Wall Street is now open for business, reacting to the first jobs report since the government shut down. The market is in positive territory. We're looking at green arrows across the board right now. Coming up, we'll hear from the White House on the new jobless number and the next round of fiscal fights that are just around the corner. But first, the White House soup of the day, turkey lentil. We will be right back. Stay with us.